How are you doing? So today, I guess I want to talk to you about the plant medicine that literally gave me a second chance at life, in all honesty. And what I'm going to share with you is probably one of the most misunderstood. And if you're watching this, potentially life-changing things you're ever going to hear. So, a little bit about Ibogaine. So it's a little-known extract from the root of an African plant. Okay, people throw around labels like psychedelic, mystical, visionary, even like drugs themselves. So let's forget the hype. And I humbly ask you to suspend your beliefs or preconceived ideas just for the next few minutes. And what I'm going to do is strip it all down and explain what this plant is and what it actually does to your brain, your body and your life. And that's essentially why I call it the medicine that gave me a second chance at life. So what is it? Where does it come from? Okay, so Ibogaine is an extract from the root of a shrub called Tabernacle Iboga, and it's native to Gabon in Africa and the surrounding parts like Cameroon and places like that. And for centuries, the Bawiti tribe have used Iboga for ceremonies, rites of passage into adulthood, I suppose. And for these people, it's a fundamental part of life. And these rituals, they're not just symbolic in nature, they're real transformations. Like people wake up literally coming out the other side of them a completely different person. And here's something really interesting. The Gabonese people, the Bawitis, have got a phrase that actually describes Iboga that translates to eating God. And think about that for a minute. This isn't like just taking a drug. It's building a bridge that allows you to reconnect with something much, much bigger than yourself. So I first encountered Ibogaine, I'll never forget the day, February the 2nd, 2017. And since that day, it's kind of split my life in half, everything before that day and everything after that day. What it did, how I felt, everything that's happened since has been, pretty unreal. What it did do for me was give me irrefutable proof that we're far more than just this human form. And I guess that's why I now help other people heal with it. Most people, even doctors, have never ever heard about Ibogaine before. So when you tell someone it can kill withdrawals, wipe out cravings, and really help them heal profoundly, it can sound like bullshit, especially if you've been using for years and you're very cynical. But I've lived it, I've seen it, and that's just literally the tip of the iceberg of what it can do for a person. Now, I'm not a big believer in coincidence anymore, but it was discovered to have these medicinal properties, shall we say, back in the early 1960s by a guy called Howard Lutzoff. And he tried Ibogaine while he was hooked on heroin. Now, he wasn't looking for a cure. He was just taking it out of sheer curiosity, I suppose. But when he came out of the other side of the experience, what he discovered is his desire to use heroin had gone completely. He'd got no withdrawals, no desire to use. And for that time, that was absolutely unheard of. And that one experience kicked off decades and decades of research. Doctors, activists, people like Kenneth Alper, who was a very, very respected scientist and pharmacologist at the time. they all began to sit up and take real notice. Started paying real close attention. And what they kept finding through scientific method, through the repeatable scientific processes, is that Ibogaine can interrupt addiction and trauma in a way that nothing else can. When a person becomes addicted to any substance, or when they become severely traumatized or stressed out over long periods of time, it literally rewires your brain, and most of the time to an irreversible level. It changes your patterns, it hijacks the software that tells your body how to function. And after enough time, it's not you making the choice anymore. Your system's programmed to expect the substance or expect the behavior that it's used to. So Ibogaine is like a reset button that interrupts a broken program. And on top of that, what it does is it gives your cells what's called ATP. And that's like, think of it just like petrol for an engine. And most addicts are running on fumes, so Ibogaine fills the tank, so to speak. And when you've got your energy back, you feel like you've got your mojo back, and that's when transformation becomes really possible. I mean, think about it like a caterpillar and a butterfly, I suppose. It's the same creature, but it's two completely different states of being. When you're traumatized or addicted, it keeps you crawling. But Ibogaine, I suppose, gives you the wings and the space and opens the window for you to fly. So it works on 3 levels all at once. So it completely resets your energy, your body recharges, it rewires your software, your compulsions, any obsessive thought loops, and your hardware resets. So your brain feels like it's actually reset, and it does actually grow new neurological pathways. And that's not theory, that's lived experience for thousands of people now. And in the last decade, like US war veterans, people with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, started to go to clinics outside America. And for a lot of them, it was, the last stop before the grave, really, because they were all completely suicidal. And they all came back saying the same thing. It literally saved my life. And not just because the bad feelings stopped, because they felt repaired, they felt rejuvenated. So Stanford Research Institute took a look at this recently, and what they did is they MRI scanned 30 veterans before and after, and what they discovered is Ibogaine wasn't just changing the psychology, it was actually changing the physiology of these people. So, when people who've literally lost everything call something a reset, you sit up and take notice. Now don't get me wrong, it's not just some pretty experience. It can be rough. Everybody's different. It's not necessarily meaning it's going to be rough, but it can be. So what you do is you take it in capsules based on your body weight and your height. You lie down, and after a while you start to hear a buzzing noise. That's when your body, typically loses all its motor functions, because you get what's called ataxia. It can be quite unpleasant. It can feel very taxing on the body. But if you think, swap 12 to 24 hours at best of that for a chance at a brand new life, I think that's a trade well worth making. Because addiction, it drains you dry. It drains you dry. And it's not just the money, it's the energy, it's your nervous system, just literally trying to maintain balance. And that's why recovery from trauma and addiction feels impossible. And Ibogaine interrupts that. you know, no withdrawals, cravings vanish, and you've actually got energy in the tank for the first time in your life, and you've got a shot at choosing differently. That's why people say that taking one flood dose is like 10 years of therapy in 24 hours, because it gives you what nothing else does, which is the space to make the change. Now, here's the truth. Ibogaine's not a magic wand. You know, you don't wake up with a perfect life. But what it does do is give you a clean slate, and that's very rare. It gives you the clarity, the energy, and the room to think. But what you do with that room and what you do with that space, that's where you come in. That's where honesty comes in. That's where self-love comes in. And that's where you rebuild your relationships with not only the people in your life that you've wrecked them with, your relationship with yourself. And that's why I'm sharing this. Because I've seen people literally chained to heroin, cocaine, booze, and trauma walk out, you know, free. Not because of willpower, not because of magic, because it literally resets the system. So if you are struggling, hear this. You're not broken. You're stuck in a bad loop with a faulty operating system. And Ibogaine can literally give you the reboot that you need. What you do when you've had that reboot, that's entirely up to you. But with real work, you know, a shot at a brand new life is possible. So that's why I call Ibogaine the plant medicine that gave me a second chance at life. And it works on 3 levels: energy, mind, and brain. Mind, body, soul. And that's why I believe literally it can change the world if it wasn't buried under politics and fear. So if this resonates with you, share it. Because the person that you share it with might just be one video from finding out what it can do for them. Now, again, this isn't any medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I've helped a lot of people get well using Ibogaine. And what I'm trying to do is spread the word. So be well, stay honest, protect your energy. And if you do know somebody who could benefit from this information, then share this video with them. All right, thanks for listening.